assume that. And so I will give a 3, 2, 1, and then we will start. Are you ready?
Ready.
Perfect. And it's 9 o'clock almost. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Good day, everybody. This is Tom Hazelton, CEO with Iowa's County Conservation System, and welcome to the presentation today. Reference to a new board member orientation. This is being recorded for primarily our state board of directors representatives, but it's also a good tool for you to use locally as a local county conservation board member. So hopefully you will enjoy the presentation. It'll last just shy of an hour. And then if you have questions, we ask you to refer to your director, their county conservation director in your county, or feel free to give me a call at any time. My contact information will be on the final screen. So if you need that, you can have that. So anyway, let's get on with the presentation. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and we'll try to get through them as quickly as we can. We're primarily going to talk about things that are happening in 2021, as well as what we're going to look forward to in 2022. So this past year, we had a couple of cool things that have happened with us, and back in March, the state of Iowa, through the Keep Iowa Beautiful program, recognized county conservation as the receiving the 2020 Organization Award of Excellence, which was awarded in 2021 due to the pandemic. But that was a nice recognition for us, primarily for what occurred to county parks during the early year of the pandemic, where everybody found us. And so we were all had extraordinary experiences in 20 and 21, and it was nice to receive that recognition. The other thing or two that was really kind of cool in 2021 was that the Iowa County Magazine did a second edition about county conservation this past May, and that was primarily about our successes and challenges that we had during the pandemic, and recognizing the fact that we were extraordinarily busy and had to meet all kinds of new frontiers and challenges to get through that. And I just wanted to remind everybody that there's 2 editions about county conservation, good learning tools for anybody, that are available on the ISAC website. And then subsequent to the magazine in May, later in May last year, we had a webinar where Matt Cosgrove, Dan Cohen, and myself presented updated information about our system, as well as about the Natural Resource and Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund. And so again, another good learning opportunity video to watch, available on the ISAC website. So if you need links to that, your director should be able to help you find that. Just a reminder, coming up this next year, we recently completed our 2021 fall conference, but we will be in Dubuque County next fall on September 13th through 15th. And you can see the future dates there on your screen, as well as where we have been the past several years. And we encourage all board members to consider attending these fall conferences. Usually we get representatives from 40 or 50 county conservation boards. In past years, we've had as many as 70 boards attend, but it is the #1 opportunity for you to meet with your peers from across the state and tour other counties' facilities and programs, and to better your local system by visiting others. So we encourage you to get that on your calendar for 2022. Our current board of directors is made up of quite a few representatives, and as you see on the screen here, we have representatives from the County Conservation Board member system statewide, as well as all of our divisions that are part of county conservation here in Iowa. And our current members and their terms of office are listed below there in the center part of the screen, showing you who is representing which aspect, as well as their terms and when they will be completing their current three-year term on the state board. And here we are as far as the board member representation. In 2018, we kind of redistricted this election process and combined a couple of our districts in various aspects of the state program. And then we have elections, one election every year from one of the regions. And so you see our representatives from across the state. districts 1 and 2 combined for the central, basically the central Iowa region, and Terry Reese from Worth County is our representative there. From regions 3 and 4 in Western Iowa, Luann Brown from Adams County, and from regions made up of districts 5 and 6 in eastern and southeastern Iowa, we have Steve Dixon from Mahaska County. So we thank them all for their service, and know that these elections come up every couple of years. So if you may have any future interest in serving on a state board, we invite you to consider that. So a little bit of history, don't want to bore you with too much, but county conservation really isn't a new idea, because back in 1896, Thomas McBride, some of you may recognize that name from McBride State Park, or actually as a former president of the University of Iowa. But he wrote a book called County Parks in 1896, which we happened to discover here about 7-8 years ago. And some of the pull quotes from that book or paper that he wrote are on this screen, and I use those today because his reference to the need for county parks, et cetera, back in 1896 still rings true today, and no more so than during the pandemic. And so it was nice to recognize the fact that this was thought about well over 100 years ago, but it took some time before it got to be reality here in Iowa. Actually, it took until 1943 when the State Conservation Commission, the forerunner of the Iowa DNR, requested that the Iowa legislature consider creating a county conservation board system in Iowa. Nobody really knew what it would look like, but and that's why it probably took 12 years to get the language just right, so that the legislature then passed that in 1955 and created Code Section 111A, which is now Code Section 350 in the Iowa Code that created the county conservation boards. And the law required that each county actually have, during a general election, vote into existence a county conservation board. So that was the first bit of local support, which you'll hear more about here shortly, that got county conservation boards rolling. And in the bottom part of the screen there, you can see our first 16 that were voted into existence in 1956. And they all just turned 65 years old. So happy Medicare, I guess. So in 1955, what is now Chapter 350 was created. And you see the House file there. And in 1958, the Iowa Conservation Commission now had some 50 county conservation boards established, and they created the County Conservation Coordinator's Office, which was going to be around for the next 40 years, essentially, to help coordinate the fledgling county conservation system and assist those board members that really didn't have many staff back in the 50s or early 60s to help network themselves. And that's when our districts were created in 1958. So in 1959, IACCB was established, which still exists today as my employer, as one of the divisions of the current Iowa County Conservation System. And so we were formed and started networking county conservation boards back in 1959. And so in the early years, from the first 16 in 1956 through the 60s, there was a lot of land acquisition, really the developmental years, adding staff, getting started, finding direction, creating priorities. And so around the state, there was just a lot of that initial organizational structure coming in to play county by county as they were voted in. And then the IACCB and the County Conservation Coordinator's Office really had their hands full with a lot of new stuff just happening across the state. And so that's your dose of history, and some of the rest of our history will be intertwined as we go forward. But one of the things that we did starting back in the 60s, actually at the State Fair booth, as we partnered with the Conservation Commission to be part of their exhibit there at the State Fair, which we did for 40 years. And we also started in the early 70s some of our educational items with our staff because we had so many. And so these are just some reminders of those pieces of our history. And what is now our Winterfest conference was held at Springbrook, out at the Springbrook State Conservation Education Center that has now closed, out at Springbrook State Park, where we were for 27 years. And the program continued to expand on through the 70s to where we had hundreds of staff. The board members were kind of fixed, 5 in each county. But as the counties kept coming on board all the way through the 80s, we kept adding board members across the state. So still a lot of exploration and experiencing new things. And therefore the networking amongst us became paramount importance. And so in 1989, the state legislature decided to do some combining, and they closed they created the DNR out of the County Conservation Commission, out of the Iowa Conservation Commission. And with that reorganization, they closed the County Conservation Activities Office in 1989. So what we had in place is kind of the mothership guiding us, and at one time fully staffed with 3 full-time people. They were closed down and reassigned. So all of a sudden we lost that office, and we at the time had a temporary executive secretary on board with the state association, but that was it. So Don Brazelton was immediately shouldered with the responsibility of another reorganization, along with the state board of directors, to pick up the pieces from that office closure and take the IACCB at the time to a new level. And so jumping ahead a little bit, we reorganized again in 2018 to the Iowa County Conservation System, ICCS, but that's kind of a doing business as front office type name, because IACCB is still our main leading organization, umbrella organization, if you will, behind the scenes. But we do have kind of a mission statement, and this is it. And it's so simple, really, when you think about who we are and what we do, but promoting the objectives and supplementing the activities of county conservation boards, information networking, assisting boards and members in program development, promotion, and marketing of Iowa's county conservation system, board member and staff education, and providing a unified voice in the Iowa legislature. And this hasn't changed in decades because it is so all-encompassing and really does kind of outline what our mission as a state networking association does. And so every organization, I guess, needs a table of organization, and this is ours for 2021. I prefer to think of us more as the atom logo there on the bottom left, because all these moving parts working together is who put us together and make us who we are. But if you want to see where legislation kind of works its way through our system, you see where it drops out there, and you can see where the divisions are certainly a major aspect of our input and operation. And then mycountyparks.com is highlighted in there as part of our structure, because it is probably the newest piece of the puzzle, and demands a lot of our attention just because of the growth in that arena, which we'll talk about here shortly. To say we do this all alone would be impossible. As we know, we partner statewide with a lot of organizations, and these are the ones that are primary. And I could have 2 or 3 slides that reference other organizations, but success-wise, we are successful, have been, and continue to move forward on the cutting edge of conservation because of the local control, the local support, the local funding, partnerships, foundations, all those organizations and stakeholders that we work with on a local basis, county by county, as well as these statewide entities with statewide footprints like our own that we partner with and I work with at the leadership level. So we appreciate all those that you work with locally, as well as the ones we work with statewide. So statewide, we are made up of a bunch of people, and each county has 5 county conservation board members. So there's 495 of you out there. And then we currently have 100 conservation directors, which you ask why, because there's only 99 counties. This past year, we had 1 county, Warren, that now has co-directors. And so we do have the 100 directors across the state. So they are hired by the Conservation Board. And then between the board and the conservation directors, they supplement their staff according to programming and budget. restrictions to have another 574 general employees in addition to the directors. And then obviously we couldn't do what we do without the hundreds of part-time and seasonal staff, as well as thousands of volunteers that support our operations. So that makes up the people of our industry. So when we talk about the 1,169 of us, that's who we're referring to. I usually talk about Linn County a little bit because I did put in 35 years there for one thing, but uniquely, it's an exemplary of what makes our system so great is the longevity of staff and the number of years that folks stick around. By and large, most county conservation employees stay within the system their entire career path, which could be 35, 40 years, depending on where they're working. And as you look at this view of the Linn County staff, the average of 24.5 years of continuous service. And so that's pretty unheard of in most industries. And usually by the time, say you're a young entrepreneur in California, by the time you're age 30, you're already on career path number 5. And we don't see that a lot in conservation here in Iowa. And what that does for us is amazing because it keeps our network together. It keeps our local personal networks, those that each employee develops over their early years of their career. Those people are always there to network with and tag team on projects statewide and consult with. And so that really is a major aspect of what makes our system so successful. And you see at the very bottom there that the average years of service now in 2021 is about 13.6 years. It wasn't that long ago, it was in the 20s. And so through attrition and turnover and expansion, our county conservation staff has become very young in the recent years. So that really underscores the importance of training and networking amongst us. So the facts, we've talked about the people there just briefly. We have a lot of great places, which involve 2,024 different areas, 215, almost 16,000 acres of land, which involves trails, parks, natural areas, preserves, et cetera. And if you're looking to find a publicly managed cabin in Iowa, the bulk of them are within the county conservation system, over 250 cabins now in over 54 counties. And conservation education, the beautiful education centers we have across the state. We now have 75 counties that have those and 6 more currently in either fundraising or production stage. And so that's a niche that we fill that no one else does. The bulk of the trails in Iowa, the 2,700 some miles of connecting trails across the state, the bulk of those are managed by county conservation boards, as well as the campsites. So over 11,000 campsites within our 2,024 parks across the state and natural areas. So the bulk of the public campsites are in county parks. And then not always with connection with the nature centers, but across our system, over nearly 26,000 programs each year with over 750,000 participants. So quite the outreach going on from county conservation to the public and schools, et cetera, across the state. A lot of this support and enablement has come from the REAP program. The REAP, Resource Enhancement and Protection Program, is a significant aspect of funding source for county conservation. It has been now for well over the past pushing 40 years. And I'm going backwards, no, it'll be 30 years. It started in 1990. And so we've been at 12 million in funding statewide for REAP for the last several years. It had been 16 several years before that, but never really fully funded. This comes from an annual appropriation of the state legislature and then about $1 million each year from license plate sales. And so the REAP program is critical to our operations. Every county gets some annual funding from REAP, as well as the grant programs available through conservation education and the general programming. We are in a REAP assembly year that are currently happening across the state, and we will have our REAP Congress coming up, I believe, on January 8th, that first Saturday in January 2022. And the REAP Alliance, which ICCS and Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation serve as co-chairs, of the REAP Alliance is a group of like-minded stakeholders, organizations across the state that continually advocate for REAP funding and support REAP annually with the state legislature, and attend the congresses and support the system through the local venues and opportunities for input. So we certainly appreciate all those folks that participate in REAP. And so here's some of the numbers that REAP has provided to county conservation over the years. $67 million. And, you know, were the REAP program not around, you kind of wonder where that money would come from. And down at the bottom of this slide, we reference the total REAP program funding for the first 30 years is $354 million. And that's not obviously just county conservation, as we'll see in some upcoming slides, but this is why REAP is important to Iowa. And there's not many states that have a program like this. So not unlike our county conservation system, there's a special program that helps support us through the state. And that's why it's always worth advocating and supporting and having a good knowledge of what REAP has done for your county. One of the tools available to you that are updated every 4 or 5 years by the DNR are these county by county posters. And the posters have two sides. One is all about what has happened over the length of the REAP program in your county. This one is highlighting Tama County. Then the backside talks about the benefits of REAP and more information about REAP. So here you can see on this slide where they're talking about the historic preservation, the soil conservation and water quality, roadside and other aspects of the REAP program, and county by county as well as statewide totals are available on the REAP website through the DNR. So just another tool for you to become more familiar with REAP. Want to compare ourselves a little bit to the DNR every once in a while so that you can see how some numbers and programs compare. And the job relation, the personal income generated, annual visitation. The big number on here is the acreages. And as you get down to the bottom, we did a joint inventory of assets between the DNR and County Conservation and Corps of Engineers back a few years. And uniquely, there's $1.25 billion worth of hard assets in the county conservation system. And this excludes the land. So when we want to talk about county conservation and the need for funding for infrastructure, et cetera, it's important to understand that there's this large asset inventory across the state. And we'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. So the economic impact is also important as we talk about county conservation. And we do have 146,000 acres open for hunting. And that annually yields about a $58 million impact to Iowa's economy. Same with those campsites we referenced. There's formulas that allow us to plug in numbers that tell us that that number of campsites yields about $40 million a year in economic impact. And the same with those trails. Those 1,940 miles of trails managed by county conservation have a nearly $21 million annual impact on the economies across the state, local and statewide economies. So that's a story to tell statewide as well as locally. We can use the same formulas to tell your stories. And then we have this great website that we kind of launched a few years back. And as we talk about what's available for employment across the state, we generally like to point out that we have this great resource on mycountyparks.com under the employment tab at the bottom, where anybody can go on there currently and look at what are all posted by full-time openings and seasonal openings. Sometimes in the spring, there's over 130 positions listed here with the need for seasonal staffing. And just to check here the other day, we had 11 full-time openings on there. So it's a very much go-to resource and has been for the last decade or so to post your positions that you have open statewide, as well as to share that link with people that are coming into the field, or friends and family or co-workers you may have that are looking for a career path in conservation. The positions we have statewide very uniquely, the green ones on the top of the screen here are very similar to maybe some you have in your county, or those that are more recognizable as conservation-related career paths. Excuse me. The yellow ones we have here are some of the specific unique ones we may have in county conservation that are not ones that you would find in either state or federal work, because we're kind of a unique system here in the state and have a lot of different services and programs that we provide. And so supporting these employee groups that we have across the state are divisions that have formed over the history of our county conservation system to serve specific needs of these specific organizations members. And you can see here the number of members in each of the employee groups that we have across the state. I referenced before that IACCB is still one of these divisions, but it is the parental group to the remainder of these that involves all the board members and all the directors. But all the employees in the system do have automatic membership with no fee into the Employees Association. The directors have their own County Conservation Directors Association. The naturalists in the 70s formed the Iowa Association of Naturalists, and they have a current membership of 180, which are not all county conservation people. They have some private groups and state employees, et cetera, in that group. The Park Rangers group got together in the 80s and formed the County Conservation Peace Officers Association, of which they have 100% participation. And the new kid on the block would be the AFIRM, Association for Integrated Roadside Managers, that formed in the early 90s, which currently have programs in about 16 county conservation board systems. So they're the newer ones on the board. And taking a quick look at each one of these, and I will mention right up front that each of these, as you can see the leadership positions available in IACCBE, each of these organizations have wonderful leadership opportunities for your staff to serve. And we certainly encourage you to encourage your staff to get out of the box and serve on some of these statewide opportunities, because it not only builds their own personal networking team for their career path, but they bring back such great ideas and leaders leadership ideas back to your county by networking with other counties and other leaders in their peer group classification. And so IACCBE is the the broader employee group. And you can see there our current president is Brent Hansen in Polk County. They serve a kind of a 2-year term, and the 21-22 committee is pictured here. And all the positions from across the districts and divisions that represented on the committee, as well as ad hoc members that just want to serve because they want to serve. They don't have to be representing any particular organization. Currently, the Winterfest titled event is held each year in January, and from 99 to 2018 was held in Waterloo, with a lot of support from the Waterloo Convention and Visitors Bureau over the years. But again, as I mentioned, the best opportunity for board members is to go to the fall conference. This is obviously the best opportunity for all employees to network and engage with educational sessions at the Winterfest event. It's now being held at the Hyatt Regency Coralville down in Coralville, Johnson County. And it is scheduled for January 24th to 26th, coming up this January. And it is already booked out through 2025 in Coralville, so you will know it will be there. But that is just an excellent opportunity of which all employees should strive to attend to. The planning committee that we showed you earlier, it met a lot on Zoom this past year and has the big task of putting together the Winterfest event, as well as the former state fair booth that we participated in. And so, you know, it's quite a challenge for the committee, and it takes the full 24 members to really put together that great event each spring. So, but they meet 7 times a year, some on Zoom, some in person, and do a lot of scratch work to pull together the conferences, et cetera, each year. Our Directors Association is primarily directors and deputy directors, and our current president is Jenna in Clayton County. And they get together with ISAC and partner with ISAC quite frequently, twice a year with ISAC conferences, and they combine their director association meetings with ISAC. There's several slides here, and by the way, this slide program will be available on the mycountyparks.org website, as well as a PDF copy of it that can be downloaded, so that if you need this information later, it's certainly available to you. So I'm not going to go through these duties and responsibilities, but these came primarily from the Directors Association themselves to talk about general leadership qualities and requirements of a person in a director job, and characteristics of a good director, which I think obviously all our directors have, and then some of the higher level signature characteristics, as well as participation of directors, are the ones that engage at a higher level and serve at some of the statewide committees and leadership roles and participate wholly in all those opportunities available to them, which we really do encourage you as a board member to ensure that your director does get out and stay engaged with his peers, his or her peers across the state, and with those organizations. And this past year, we created some documents to try to assist both board members and directors with recruiting not only board members, but also recruiting and training board members and directors. And so what you see on this slide is a description of duties for a county conservation board member, proposed or recommended recruitment and selection guidance that can be shared with the board of supervisors in many counties, because they're the ones that appoint you, the conservation board members, on a regular basis. So sometimes they need some input and assistance with that process. So we put together a document to help with that. And then, as well as the orientation that's available from our state association, as well as local resources for orientation of board members. And certainly this presentation, as well as some of the things we provide from our ICCS leadership office here, we can certainly make available to you, and are available online nowadays. So these documents are there for your availability. And then, as well as for the directors, sometimes a conservation board may be hiring a new director or want a job description. And so working with our Directors Association, we put together this generic job description of a director so that you could see what best practices may be in a job description, and what to look for in hiring or orientation or expectations of a director. And so these documents are all available to you, primarily in the portal available through your director. So don't be afraid to ask for those. The State Association of Naturalists, IAN, was formed in 1978, and they pretty much have full membership of all the naturalists and assistant naturalists and education center staff and managers across the state. And then you see their leadership, and the current president is from Muscatine County, Michelle Burns down there. And so they're a great organization and fill this niche. You know, mind you, we didn't really have any naturalists until the mid-70s. We were all anxiously acquiring land and building programs. And then the first nature center started to come around, and the outdoor education outreach and environmental ed really took hold and was popular. And that is the niche that we fill to the max nowadays. We went from 0 to about 120 naturalists over the last 40 years. And this is quite a strong aspect of who we are and what we do. And so it's lifelong learning. It's not just the school groups and home education groups. It's adult learning and road trips and programming across the board, all put on by all our staff, but really coordinated by the naturalists in our counties and education staff. And so IAN does have a strong organization, training opportunities throughout the year, a newsletter, and great leadership. And so obviously outdoor education and historic interpretation are big parts of what they do. And we encourage, I believe all 99 counties have something going on in outdoor ed. And, so their programs are quite diverse depending on nature center scope and availability of staff and budgets and that sort of thing. But all local support and always highlighting this important aspect of what we do. If you do the math, the average of 29 participants per session across the state with the number that are produced each year. So Some are more, some are less, but great programming from across our system. The Roadside Organization, Association for Integrated Roadside Managers that I referenced earlier, that started in the 90s. You can see here on the map, the Secondary Roads Department currently manages the bulk of these divisions across the state, but there are 16 in the green in county that are managed and housed, so to speak, under the county conservation departments in Iowa. Joe Quaker in Story County is the current president, and you can see the leadership opportunities on their board of directors for a firm. And you know, every county's got hundreds of, if not thousands of miles of roadside, and this is primarily what the IRVM program works with. And so they're kind of managed out of the University of Northern Iowa and have a great office and network established through them. And these couple slides just kind of reference some of the responsibilities of that roadside program, working with the road department and other agencies locally, and the special equipment and responsibilities that they may have depending on the scope of the program and how it operates in each county. They do get into some of that Living Roadway Trust Fund money that is funded at the state level. So again, REAP is a portion of this and also supportive of this. And so great program to get involved with if your county's got one. If not, maybe think about it and talk to those counties that already have one to see how that could be a benefit to your county. The Park Ranger Association, as it was started, formed the County Conservation Peace Officers Organization, which just celebrated its 36th year in 2021, and provides all the necessary training statewide if you have county peace officers in your department. Approximately 63 of the 99 counties do have peace officers in their ranks, and there are requirements by state code for training, et cetera. And we'll go through those real quick here. But again, the leadership opportunities for your peace officers, if you have them, and just know that this training organization is backing them up and making sure that their training is available to them. Ryan Weimold from Story County is the current president, and they're all doing a great job. This is one of the few employment opportunities within county conservation that has hiring standards, as well as standards that require mandated in-service training post-hire and post-certification. So it does involve attending the law enforcement academy. And so there's a lot of moving parts to hiring a peace officer, and we're pretty well versed in that with the number that we have across the state, and obviously here to assist you with that. But we do have those 60 plus counties that also have strong program and policies in place. But just know that there's these requirements in the background for all peace officers that they must maintain and they must meet in order to be hired. As with any of our jobs, but specifically the law enforcement jobs, there's a lot of pros and cons. And so during the hiring process, these are some of those discussions you need to have with the candidates, just because their work schedule for one, the long hours, and the other types of responsibilities they may have that are different from some of the other employment opportunities. So, but an important aspect of what we have. Back to the website a little bit. Our current version of mycountyparks.com was created back in 2006, and as a one-page informational page for employees primarily. And then as time rolled on in a few short years, it became apparent that we really needed a statewide operational website to serve all 99 counties. So from day one, when we launched the current website in 2009, we've been an award-winning website from various recognition entities, from education to tourism and county government. So we continue to evolve with that website and have added the additional mycountyparks.org website, plus our Facebook pages to generate our digital footprint, which didn't even exist 10, 12 years ago. So this is quite a growth pattern and continues to expand. And one current aspect of expansion is the QR codes. These are not new, but they are finding their way into our programming, into our networking and marketing systems currently at a rapid pace with the use in our campgrounds, where we've had a couple counties start using them to integrate with our mycountyparks.com website with camper registration and information availability through their smartphones right on site in the campground. So we are starting to modify the website to better embrace what QR codes can do for us, and are looking at how that can work into our educational programming as a new major aspect of how we get information to the public. And part of our room for expansion deals with looking at two aspects of what is currently on the website and what is currently available across our system statewide. And so as we look at those 11,000 plus campsites across the state, we currently have, I believe, 27 counties that take some kind of online reservations for camping throughout the state. But 98 counties actually have campsites available. And so here are some of the numbers on here that we have on the website. So literally only 9% of the total is available. So we got a lot of room to grow there, and at least getting them on the website so people can find them, and then to consider maybe putting more on there for online reservations. And how do we do that? And how do we have QR codes and other technology help make that a simpler process for you? And the other one is those events, those tens of thousands of events that we reference. 21 counties currently take online reservations for events, and that has expanded recently because we now make it free of charge to set up for non-paying events. So if you have free events that you want to market and put on the website, we can set that up for you at no charge, and at least get you online with your event registrations so that you can take that off the phone and out of your office perhaps. So a lot of room for expansion here as we move forward with the website and just targeting the campsites in these events. A lot of details on this slide, but the key point is that we now have over 152,000 registered users that have given us profile information and contact information for them. Many of those are customers that have already purchased things through the website, whether it's an event or a facility reservation. And we just this past year, fiscal year, experienced 51% growth and explosion actually in our online reservations. We've been running at about 20% per year, with a slight downtick in the pandemic year, first year of the pandemic. And so a major aspect of who we are and our presence nowadays. A lot of numbers there you can read at a later time. In 2013, we added our mycountyparks.com portal, which has our online internal event registration system. It has our 1,200 some contacts of board members and staff in there, our file sharing system, and our job posting system. These are all in a secure cloud environment, so accessible only by restricted profiles. But we do have 5 or 6 different profiles that have access to our web presence. So if you're interested in gaining access, certainly there's a lot of resources in there for you. And then in 2017, we added our administrative website, primarily for our divisions and our internal operations, just because there were things they couldn't do on mycountyparks.com. So just to confuse everybody, we put it on mycountyparks.org, which is then our administrative aspect of who we are. So when you see things referenced to being on our .org website, that's where we're talking about them. And then of course, Facebook at the bottom, we added those 2 pages over the last 10 years that integrate with our website. So quite the digital footprint that we have nowadays. So which counties are doing which? This is our most current information. Again, the 3 counties, Polk, Lynn, and Blackhawk, shared with us $87,000 of their dollars back in 2007 to get things up and started as far as the initial construction of the website. Nowadays, we have 49 county conservation boards that have some sort of online reservation presence with either facilities and or events. We have a couple more coming on board shortly here in the first half of 2022, which gets us over 50. So we're at 51. We've had preliminary possibility discussions with these other 13 counties. And then the ones that either have either cabins or an active environmental ed program that could benefit from online reservations gets us to that number of 88. So the bulk of our counties could really benefit from having some sort of online reservation activity on mycountyparks.com. And we encourage you to consider that and to get on board. And there's 50 some counties that have done it before you, if you're not. And so they're great resources to chat with and consult with about what works best. Our 2013 cloud I mentioned that we added with the portal has these features to it. The contact system, the jobs posting, the best practices sharing, and the file system. And so these are primarily managed by a staff person in your county conservation board. Each county has at least one county administrator for mycountyparks.com that has access to all aspects of the portal. And so if you need local resources or if you need to change information or update, that's all done locally through your county. And so we encourage you to keep that all up to date as possible, especially the contact information, because that's where we scoop our email addresses for our communications, as the divisions and districts also use those for communicating with different groups of our employees across the state, as well as board members. So we encourage you to keep that system current. Zoom is something that we've been doing for 4 or 5 years, but became really popular here during the pandemic. And I think is now an integral part of who we are and what we do, as well as it's very efficient. And so I know our state board does half of their meetings on Zoom and has been for 4 or 5 years. And we have a Zoom room available to you to use for important interviews or other meetings that you might want to use at no charge. Just get on our schedule, and that schedule is available on our mycountyparks.com.org website. On the homepage, you can check what date you might want and see what's on the schedule and shoot us an email and get reservations. I know many of you have picked up your own Zoom contracts in the last year, and it's a great way to be efficient and expand your EE program and or your networking with staff that are remote. So another great technology aspect that we have embraced and find to be an important part of our presence now. We've had a preferred vendor program since 1960. It's been an important part of our presence as far as membership. Our annual conference would not really survive without the support of these preferred vendors through sponsorships and vendorships and exhibiting and partnering with us in various aspects of what we do, all in part to become partners with you in things that you do, whether it's design and infrastructure needs or services or products. Please consider that we do have these preferred vendors as part of our membership, and their listing is on our mycountyparks.org website. Publications aren't near what they used to be. There's a smattering here of things that we still do and still provide, primarily that newsletter that goes out at least once a month, generally electronically. So we don't print it, but it is a publication that we do in tandem during legislative session with the Capitol Report, which is put together by our lobbyist team at the Capitol. And so that comes out electronically also. The personnel directory at the bottom, which used to be printed, is now part of the portal. And if you keep that up to date, then it is up to date for everyone to have access to. Our salary survey, which is our #1 requested service, we do that digitally now. Once each autumn, we just produce this current FY22 report, which usually comes out in October each year. And then various other surveys as needed through our Survey Monkey that we have available to our system. And then our outdoor adventure guide that we still have a supply of. I doubt we'll be reprinting that one, but we will probably always have some sort of digital version of that book. And that's 242 pages of who we are now being transformed into Facebook pages week by week. We are a strong partner with the Iowa Tourism Office, have been for now decades. And we partner consistently and continually with them on various events and promotions. and want you to know that there's a lot of free things that your county can do digitally with them through their traveliowa.com website. You can upload your events and facilities so that people can find you and those aspects of your program, and connect up with various promos that they have through us and through our Facebook pages and yours. And so there's a lot of these tourism type things that we can partner with as a group, or you can partner with individually. And they're an important part of our new employee school and help share their products and digital possibilities with your staff at our new employee school. And some of the recent work that the Iowa Department of Economic Development and Tourism Office have put together really incorporates what we've known all along, but also is working into our strategic planning for 2023. And mentioning here some of the key message pillars that the Department of Economic Development as well as the Tourism Office uses to plan their programming. And the number one pillars for FY 2022 include the exploration and adventure aspect of Iowa, which includes state and county parks. So we're actually listed in their number one messaging pillar. And if you look back to 21 and 2020, you see that natural beauty and exploration and adventure, which is all of what we do, is a major aspect of their promotion and their development of the future. And our survey there that you see, that was a statewide survey we did in 2020 to help us with our transitioning to 2023. A lot of those check marks there are highlighting aspects that just immediately intertwine with Iowa tourism. And so we're joined at the hip with tourism, as we should be, as well as partnering with them into the future. And so we partnered with them in 2019 with them in the 99 parks in 99 counties promotion, which also included our selfie stations that we have, I think, in 80 counties now across the state. And so in 2021, we re-embraced the 99 parks concept with 99 parks in 99 weeks, where we are visiting each of your county conservation boards over the course of 99 weeks over the course of 20 and 21 and 22. And so we have been through 42 counties already. So we have 58 yet to go. And so when your county's turn is up, we certainly appreciate your assistance with pictures and text that we can load up on our 2 Facebook pages and connect with yours and really promote you for an entire week of your week each year. To date, as you can see, as of late October, we've shared 800 just awesome photos and have reached over well over 250,000 people through this promotion, and that'll go through December of 2022. So a great thing that we're doing, and enjoy your participation with us. Our fall conference is that important aspect that we mentioned early on, that we like to get board members and staff to both across the state. And again, you can see where we've been since 2012 and 2022 next fall in Dubuque, and going forward a couple other places. But really hard to discount the value of the board and staff education and the networking that goes on, as well as the number one thing that people enjoy about this conference is getting on those buses and touring, whether it's one county or a consortium of counties, looking at their facilities and programs to get ideas of what works across the state in other counties of varying sizes. So I really encourage you to look at those. We just recently completed our 2021 new employee school. We had 80 new employees there from the last couple of years. And these are the things that we cover with a handbook as well as training. And we have DNR representatives, primarily focusing on REAP, but also other aspects and contacts with the DNR. We have folks from IPERS there, the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation, and that we just have a great programming opportunity with them and tourism, et cetera, throughout the course of that day. It's a one-day event, and it usually occurs in October, and we encourage you to have all your new staff or staff that have not been to one attend the annual event. In tandem with that is usually the e-commerce summit, which is something new because of the website growth and expansion and the number of staff that we have engaged with hands-on work with that website. And so that has now become a rather large event each fall. Also, last week at that one, we had 63 staff from 30 some counties attend that. So that's an important aspect of planning forward to look at what we really need changes for and how we want to embrace our online presence with new technology and new features as we move ahead. So we always look forward to that annual input or input at any time to help us with that. So you see our 6 regional districts. These are the ones established by the Conservation Commission in 1958. So we still hold true to those, and they are the primary networking, first level of networking for your staff. And so you see pictures of some of the staff meetings at these district meetings that occur anywhere from 2 to 6 times per year, depending on the district. And certainly all employees should be attending these to meet their peers regionally. It's an inexpensive way, short travel time, and usually some pretty good training is brought in for those one-day events across the state. So those districts remain an integral and important part of our operation. Our lobbying team prepares this bi-weekly newsletter that comes out during the legislative session. And then when we do have some internal timely emails that we go out pertaining to legislation. So it is a big part of who we are, actually, but you don't see it much, but we do rely on a lot of your local involvement with your local legislators, community leaders, and business leaders, because you're the ones that need to network with them and share your local stories, as we'll talk about briefly here. We spend time at the Capitol. Sometimes it's important that you join us down there, and that can be on scheduled days through ISAC or the REAP Day at the Capitol, or various days with Iowa Environmental Council. There's days that we have specific targeted efforts to meet with legislators and let them know about our programming. But it's that happens at the Capitol, but truly the best happenings are locally, where you can get together at a grassroots level and meet with your legislators along with your local other leaders and talk about local needs, et cetera. And a lot of that recently has been talking about the Natural Resource and Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund, as well as the REAP program. We have to keep that in front of our legislators and other elected officials. We're still working now in year number 12 to get funding in place for this modification to Iowa's Constitution to get that in constitutional amendment in 2010, and we're still looking for funding. And so the conversation goes on. The coalition is made up of again stakeholder groups, of which Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation and Iowa's County Conservation System have been consistent and steady leaders in that force at the Capitol, as well as educational with leadership across the state. So we encourage you to support and participate with us locally, because that's what you do best. And we still have this ongoing list, now 57 pages long, single-spaced, about unmet needs of county conservation. So we talk about that infrastructure, 1.25 billion. Here we got another 1.08 billion of unmet needs of needs to repair, needs to expand, needs to fix some of that infrastructure and upgrade lots of things. So this exists. We need to update it constantly, but county by county, from participating counties, this information came from your directors that is in this document. And we encourage you to use not only your local information, but that about the statewide need for funding and opportunities for this. And frequently we get legislators and other people, what would you do with that money? So this is our go-to list for legislators. Well, here in Tama County, for example, they show $3.5 million worth of need, and we can show the entire list or just a legislative district list. So this is an important document to keep updated, just to demonstrate the need for funding, because funding sources have all but dried up and there's just not enough for the demand. So we encourage you to keep that up to date and use it as a tool. And so as we wrap up here, I really like to always end with asking a couple questions. And what is your local leadership event? Do you actively engage with your Board of Supervisors in a retreat? Do you actively engage with your elected officials? your community leaders, your business leaders? Do you get them all together at one time and have an event in the warm season when your legislators are home? Sure, you can try to chase them down at the Capitol, but it's a lot easier to get them when they're home during the summer and the fall, and have a specific stakeholder event that incorporates other stakeholder groups, other nonprofits, and your leadership, and have those discussions about what's important to you, what the unmet needs are, and how you can all work together going forward. And so because we're in 2021, approaching 2022, we need to reference our strategic plan. And that plan has been being worked on now for 3 years, in part because I'll be retiring at the end of 2022. And everybody wants to know what the plan is to move that forward. So this is a slide that we've been updating now for 3 years. And so most of the big pieces of the puzzle have been in place and have been completed. And some are ongoing that we started in 2020. So you can see a lot of it deals with the website and what's going to happen with that in the future. And then an administrative assistance plan, how we're going to support the CEO and other aspects of our program going forward. So that's in progress. We're currently wrapping up this calendar year where we've continued to work on some of the 2020 things and implemented some of the work for 2021. And then as we move into 2022, which is the primary end game of the 3 or 4 years of work, is to have a plan in place by next spring to recruit a new CEO, have a completed new job description and focus points of what our industry should look like for the short term next 3 to 5 years, and recruit that person that can best fill that need. Then have an orientation person and have them on board by late 2022. So that's in a nutshell of what the strategic path looks like. If you'd like to visit this more online in the PowerPoint, and or give me a call, chat about it anytime, available to chat about it. So this is the last slide I will show before we end this program. Our contact information is always out there. Feel free to contact us at any time, or any one of the leadership groups that we've referenced through our divisions throughout this presentation. And wish you well. Thank you for your service as a volunteer at the local level, or those of you that will serve at a broader statewide level. We couldn't do it without our local people, our local leadership, and our local appointed volunteers for our conservation boards. And those of you that serve sometimes for 30, 40 years in your positions, or those that just serve one term. But we certainly do appreciate your talent and skill levels that you bring to our system on a constant basis. So thanks for your time here today. And we look forward to working with you in the months and years to come. Thank you.